Hello and welcome to another day in paradise. I want to share with you today my thoughts on the comments made by Akon on the foundational Americans of African ancestry continuing to live their lives through slavery and not moving on. Before I get into things, I would first ask you to please help me by supporting this channel by liking, subscribing and sharing and clicking the bell notification if possible. So I'm going to start first off for context. I'm going to show you a video showing Akon's clip, his interview with DJ Vlad, because there are a number of notable YouTubers who have a problem with what he said. But I'm going to allow you to be the judge of that. So please try to be a little impartial. Take a look at the video and please don't hesitate to let me know what you think in the comment section below. Here we go. Take a look.
Well, in Senegal, we've kind of overcome the thought of slavery. We don't even think about it. The only time we think about it, honestly, is when we're doing tours that go to island. You know, outside of that, people have lived and moved and way beyond the slavery concept and idea and mind state. I think it's also the art of just letting the past go and moving towards the future. And I think in the U.S., they have this stigma of just not letting go of the past and blaming the past on every mishap or, you know, disappointment. And I think as long as you hold on to that past, it's just a lot of weight that you carry with you everywhere you go. And it's hard to move forward and move fast when you got a, you know, weight on your back. Right. You just got to let it go.
There's also been no reparations. And there's been, you know.
Yeah, but unfortunately, man, like, it's not like America is going to take the initiative to do it. I mean, otherwise they would have did it already. Yeah. You know, Indians got reparations. The Jewish got reparations for Holocaust, and it wasn't even done in America. Yeah, that's true. You know what I'm saying?
Italians got reparations.
Italians got reparations.
Japanese.
I mean, Japanese got reparations.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's to the point now where African Americans have to really understand their worth and realize that America was never or intended to ever, you know, consult or even make up for any of that. They're not sorry. They don't care. Yeah. It's obvious. So do you want to stay here and continue to be treated this way, or just go back home where you're now no longer the minority? You actually are the majority and you control your destiny and your future and your land.
Okay, so there we go. Now, really quickly, I'm going to show you the response from the African YouTuber Prince Dynast Amir. Here we go. Take a look at what he had to say about that.
I want to address Akon's, I guess, statement on Vlad TV in regards to Africans moving on from slavery. And I disagree. And the reason why I disagree is, how can you move on from something that you know nothing about? What do you mean, Dynast? What we have to understand, when you're dealing with Africa's education system, is colonial based. So you're dealing with the French and the English colonial system dominates the education, or African education, or the way Africans are educated in Africa. So a lot of them are not taught about slavery. Yes, Gorée Island might be in Dakar in Senegal, but I'm telling you, the majority of Senegalese have absolutely no clue about what took place on Gorée Island. The majority of Senegalese have never even been to Gorée Island. And so I think it was disingenuous of him to say that, you know, Black Americans should get over slavery because Africans have moved on. Well, again, you can't move on from something that you have absolutely no clue about.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you, because my opinion might be slightly biased, because I see Akon as nothing less than a living legend to me. To me, he is the African version of Elon Musk. This guy's brain works in a different way from the others. And it might be because he spent his young life in Africa. Who knows? But for me, he is an icon. More than Akon, he's an icon. So what I'm trying to say is that I can see the points that both of them are trying to make, right? And there are parts of what both of them are saying that are actually the truth, right? What Akon is saying is that the Senegalese don't want to further burden themselves by living vicariously in the past when they could save themselves a lot of time and a lot of energy by focusing on their future. For me, this is logical, of course. Now, he didn't tell us to forget about slavery. He simply said that we as a people have a lot to overcome. So why give our young ones the added burden of having to overcome an air of inferiority in the United States or in the colonial countries, whilst having to live with the people that were subjugating them and who are still subjugating them right now. Now, it could be that Akon, who isn't a foundational American of African ancestry, that he may be missing the point. He may not have the emotional impact inside of him to allow him to be, to allow him to think from our point of view. I say ours because I'm, of course, someone who was also came through slavery. So he's not a foundational American of African ancestry. So it could be that he's missing the point for that reason. Because his ancestors weren't enslaved. His ancestors were never enslaved. So maybe that's the reason. That's part of his success. That he hasn't had to deal with that burden. Now, what Dynast Amir is saying is that we cannot do that. We cannot just move on from a past that we don't understand. He gives examples of him traveling around Africa and the Africans not knowing about the history of colonialism and knowing very little simply because of the educational systems that have been implemented mostly in West Africa, but in parts of East Africa too. Most of those educational systems were implemented by the British or the French. The same people that were subjugating them. So how can you now use those systems, and you speak to someone like me, somebody that was brought up in the UK, so I know exactly what he's talking about here. They don't teach you about what happened. They don't teach you about what they did. Of course, they're not going to go and tell the kids, oh, by the way, we went into another country, we invaded it, killed all the people, and took some of them and sold them like property. They're not going to tell their kids that, are they? It is what happened. It would be historically accurate, but the colonial systems will teach something else, which is quite scary. Now, of course, the history in those colonial systems have been largely whitewashed. So many Africans are ignorant to what happened. Now, Dynast is kind of saying that we need to know who we are. So he's talking from the point of view of a foundational African of America, foundational American of African descent. Sorry, I got to get that word right. I keep messing it up. I don't use the word African Americans, by the way, guys. They're just Americans to me, in reality, because they're more American than the European Americans that are there. I have to keep explaining that, but I'll explain it again. So, he's saying that we need to know ourselves, and we need to know our history. With that, I completely understand, and I agree with him on this as well. However, this is where we differentiate, because I truly believe that he is once again coming from the perspective of a person who has been subjugated by his environment. He grew up in the United States of America. Okay, Akon did, but also largely to a degree, but he spent the most of his young life in Africa. He was born in America, got his passport, and then buggered off, which is what most of you foundational Americans of African ancestry should be planning to live your lives now. The reality is that you really want your kids to have the best of both worlds, get your passport and get out of there. I know Russians who are doing that. I know lots of Russians who are going to America, having their children, and then they're leaving. They don't want to bring up their kids in America. They wouldn't do that. Okay? They're not stupid. They want their kids to get brought up with their culture inside their blood. America doesn't have culture, and whatever culture they had, they took largely from the foundational Americans of African ancestry. So now I'm going to give you the reason why I believe Akon is right. Now, I think Akon moving on, telling us to move on, and telling African Americans to, yes, focus on getting some sort of money from it, but don't rely on it. We need some sort of compensation for what happened to our ancestors, and we should be fighting for that in their courts. But we shouldn't be relying on it. We have one of the largest continents on this planet that is our home. So and it's filled, it's the richest continent as well. So why are we even bothering to focus on what's in America? America wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Africa. Most of the things that you see there, most of the electronics would not exist or run if it wasn't for the continent that most of you guys watching this are from. So, I'm going to give you my reasons why I think he's right. I think that moving on will empower people. Now, you need to look at the people who have moved on since they were emancipated. So you need to think about people like the Chinese. Look at where the Chinese were only 35 years ago. 35 years ago, it was not unheard of to see a dead Chinese baby in the gutter in Shanghai. That was the norm. Forced abortions were the norm in that country, government sanctioned. And look at where they have moved on from. They had nothing, literally nothing. 35 years ago, all they had was Hong Kong. And that was British. It wasn't even Chinese. It was British money that set up Hong Kong to make it the world financial hub at that time. So China had nothing, literally nothing. All they had was the people, and they had control of the people, and they said, you know what, we're going to use what we've got, the people and the control of the people, to bring us to somewhere else. So our children and our children's children can have a better life. And that is what they have done in 35 years. And okay, they didn't have the same history as we had. We had it harder than them, much harder. And because they only had to deal with themselves, China as one country, Africa is 54 countries, so there's a lot more uniformity. It was easier for them to bring change to their country. It was easy for them to steer their way to success. So, but the same thing goes. They didn't hang up on their history. They focused on their future and brought themselves there. Even the Indians, look at what India are doing now. By 2100, that's just 80 years from now, which is nothing, guys, nothing. By 2100, India will surpass China and surpass Japan and surpass the United States as being the world #1 economy. Only 4 places behind. Oh wait, there'll be 8 places behind. 8 places behind will be Nigeria. They'll be number 8 on the planet in world economies. Can you imagine that? We'll be bigger than the United Kingdom. Brilliant. The future is bright for West Africa, I tell you that. If you haven't got yourself an ECOWAS passport yet, I'm telling you something now. Don't wait, because by 2100 you will not be able to buy land in Nigeria for the price of what it's going now. Sort yourselves out. Start to think about the future of your family. Not just about your future. Don't think about tomorrow, how you're going to eat tomorrow. Start to think and focus on your children's children. Leaving them a legacy. Leaving them a legacy business. Leaving them land that they can do something with. You can do that. India is going to rule the world for a century after that. And I think it will be our turn next. I say our, I mean a country from the African continent, and it's going to be Nigeria because just the way they are growing. It's going to be Nigeria, so. We have, right now, in here, in Europe, not far from here actually, a whole race of people. A whole race of people that was subjugated by the Europeans. Okay, listen, you got to remember that there was a time where the Europeans were largely confined to where they were because they didn't have the technology to move around. But when Europe did afford that technology, which gave them the ability to escape from their cold, dark corner of the world and infect the rest of the new world with their civility, they had to get indentured slaves from somewhere else. So where did they get it from? Well, they got it from here in Europe. So we have people in Europe, and you may have heard of them. They are called Slavic. They are called Slavs. Literally, the name of the race of people is called slaves. The Slavs means slave. It's directly. That's what it means. Slavs mean slaves. And these were the people that were used at the time, subjugated. And it wasn't chattel slavery. It wasn't the same. But they had to work. And they had to work for free. Because there was somebody at the top telling them to do so. But, I mean, once again, they had a different history than us. I know this. I know that they had a different history than us. Things changed. You have to think about the prominent Slavs that did make a difference in this world. People like Nikola Tesla. Right? He was a Slav. He came from descendants of slaves, like me. And like a lot of you. So I think that moving on empowers people and empowers countries, can empower a whole movement of people. I think we should also put more emphasis on teaching our young about pre-colonial history, because the history before colonialism in Africa is vast. It's absolutely vast. Africans had already invaded Europe. Did you know that? Who knew that? People keep talking about the Moors like they were Arabs, but they weren't. They were Berbers. The Berbers looked more like me than they did look like even a Berber today, that tend to have lighter skinned but still have some Afro-Asiatic features. Yeah, so Africans had once colonized Europe, and we have to go onto YouTube or see, you know, we need to hear about it from somewhere. We can't learn about it in school because schools won't teach you here in the West. So you need to learn about it yourself. You need to teach your kids about it. I would never, ever rely on the school system here to teach my kids about history. So to finish off, I truly believe that teaching our kids about pre-colonial history would be so much better. But teaching them about slavery in a way where they will be able to make a more informed decision about where they live, what they do, make more informed decisions about their future. Here, this is what slavery did to us when we were slaves, but teach them about the other slaves as well. Because at this moment, they're being brought up to believe that only black people are slaves. They're getting brought up to believe that. Which, of course, like I've just told you, was not the case. But in a way, we are one of the only people who continuously live through it and blame it for where we are today. And I've got to be honest with you, we've had to endure a lot, and most of the reason why we are where we are today is for that exact reason. Let's move on though. Let's focus on our future. Let's teach our kids, yeah, this is what slavery was. These are the people that did it. Here are their ancestors. Do you want to live with their ancestors? Do you want to hang out with them? Do you want to be friends with them? Just leave them to it. Let them answer their own questions. Let them answer it for themselves. They're not stupid. So anyway, I want to leave it there. But please, I would really like to hear your thoughts on this. So please don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care and ta-ra a bit.